They rode into America's heart as the perfect pair: Roy Rogers, the king of the Cowboys, and Dale Evans, his devoted queen. Together, they sang about love, faith, and the open road, becoming the picture of everything Hollywood wanted love to look like. But when the lights faded and the curtain fell, their real story was far from the fairy tale fans believed. For decades, Dale Evans kept her silence, guarding secrets, heartbreaks, and a truth too personal to share while Roy was alive. But after his death, she finally broke that silence, and what she revealed changed the way the world remembered their marriage forever. So, what did Dale Evans finally confess after losing the love of her life? And why did she wait until Roy was gone to tell it? Join us as we uncover the truth behind the cowboy legend and the woman who loved him till the very end. The cowboy and his queen. They weren't just stars, they were America's idea of love. He was the king of the Cowboys. She was the queen of the West. Together, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans rode straight into the nation's heart, dressed in rhinestones and wrapped in faith. Their songs filled the airwaves, their smiles filled the screen, and their love story, at least to the public, seemed untouchable. But behind the glimmer of Hollywood's golden lights, loss, and an unshakable belief that love could outlast pain. For more than a decade, Roy and Dale ruled the western frontier, not with guns or grit, but with grace. They were the reigning royalty of B-rated westerns, the wholesome faces that reminded audiences that good always wins, love conquers all, and that life on the open range could be as simple as a melody shared under the stars. Together, they starred in 29 movies and recorded over 200 albums, blending their voices in harmony, both on and off screen. And when the cameras stopped rolling, they didn't retreat into the vanity of fame. Instead, they visited children's hospitals and orphanages, bringing comfort to those who had so little. Roy and Dale didn't just perform kindness. They lived it. Both had known heartbreak before they ever met. Each carried wounds that fame couldn't heal. But when their paths crossed, something shifted. They found in each other what they'd been missing: peace, purpose, and a kind of love that steadied the soul. Their story began not in romance, but in the haze of ambition. Roy was already a household name, a cowboy singer with the Sons of the Pioneers, recording hits that echoed across America. Dale, on the other hand, was still clawing her way toward recognition, chasing dreams of Broadway lights and the applause she'd always longed for. Their first meeting was nothing special, at least not to Roy. They met at a recording studio, both married to other people at the time. Dale remembered the moment clearly. Roy, not so much. To him, she was just another voice in a crowded room. But fate has a funny way of circling back. Years later, Dale landed a role in The Cowboy and the Señorita, a film that would change everything. She was cast as Roy's leading lady, and the chemistry between them was instant. On screen, they were electric, and they had the kind of innocence that Hollywood couldn't resist. The studio noticed, the audience noticed, and before long, the duo became a packaged dream, signed to do 7 more films together. But off-camera, their friendship began to deepen. They shared long conversations, quiet laughter, and a sense of understanding that felt too natural to ignore. It wasn't rushed or reckless. It was slow, steady, and built on mutual respect. Before long, friendship turned into something neither of them could deny. Then came the moment that sealed their fate. It was the fall of 1947, and the couple was performing at a rodeo in Chicago. Just before their big entrance, Roy, sitting proudly on trigger, turned to Dale and casually proposed. No fancy setting, no orchestrated romance, just 2 people in cowboy gear, surrounded by the smell of hay and the roar of the crowd. It was perfectly them. They set the date for New Year's Eve, and the world couldn't wait. Gossip columnists spun wild predictions, saying that Trigger would be the best man, and Dale would wear a red sequined cowgirl gown. But the truth was far simpler, far more intimate. The ceremony took place quietly at a ranch in Oklahoma, where they were filming their 17th movie, Home in Oklahoma. Their agent, Art Rush, stood as best man. His wife, Mary Jo, was the matron of honor. Fans, especially women, were heartbroken. Some even wrote letters, sweet, naive confessions of love, believing Roy might ride up on Trigger to their doorstep one day. But Roy had found his heart's home, and Dale kept it forever. They admired each other deeply. Their love wasn't just romantic, it was spiritual. Both grounded in faith, they built their marriage on shared beliefs, music, and devotion to family. Together, they raised 9 children, a house full of laughter, chaos, and unconditional love. But their faith would soon be tested in the hardest way imaginable. 3 of their children died young. It was a pain that could have destroyed them, but instead, it drew them closer. Roy once reflected on the loss of their daughter Robin, who passed away before her 2nd birthday. He believed that no one could ever truly understand why such things happen. Only God knew, and in trusting Him, they would one day understand. Through it all, Roy and Dale remained steadfast. They refused to let sorrow drive them apart. Their love only grew deeper, their faith stronger. To them, walking away during hard times was never an option. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans weren't just Hollywood's favorite couple. They were proof that love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about endurance. It's about holding on when everything else is falling apart. And through every song, every smile, and every heartbreak, they showed the world exactly that. Before she became the Queen of the West. Long before the world crowned her the Queen of the West, Dale Evans was just a small-town girl with a big voice and a storm of dreams. Born Frances Octavia Smith on October 31st, 1912, in Uvalde, Texas, she came into a world that would test her early and mold her fire. Her parents, Betty Sue and T. Hillman Smith, raised her in Italy, Texas, a humble town that was filled with gospel hymns and small-town whispers. By the time she was 3, little Frances was already singing in her Baptist church, her voice carrying more soul than her years could explain. But her childhood wasn't the easy kind. It was marked by movement, longing, and survival. At 9, she went to live with her aunt and uncle, Dr. L.D. Massey, a respected physician, and his wife in Osceola, Arkansas. She would return there again at 11 for medical treatment. Those years away from her parents were bittersweet. She later described her aunt and uncle as really second parents to me, a quiet confession that said more about her fractured beginnings than she ever needed to explain. Life threw its first big twist when she was just 14. Young, restless, and eager to be loved, Frances eloped with a man named Thomas F. Fox. By 15, she was a mother to a baby boy, Thomas Jr. But the fairy tale she thought she was stepping into dissolved quickly. Within a year, she was abandoned, left in Memphis, Tennessee, with an infant in her arms, and no plan but survival. She was just a teenager, but she worked like a woman twice her age. She took business courses and got a job at a bus company, then another at an insurance firm. The pay wasn't much, but it kept food on the table. One day, fate stepped in quietly, in the form of her boss, overhearing her sing. He saw something she couldn't yet see in herself. That moment would change everything. Soon, Frances found herself behind a microphone instead of a typewriter. Memphis radio stations WMC and WREC gave her a chance to sing and play piano on air, and the audience loved her. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was being heard. By 1930, she had moved to Chicago to chase a bigger dream. But dreams came at a price. She was diagnosed with malnutrition, a brutal reminder that ambition and hunger sometimes walked hand in hand. Still, she didn't quit. She reinvented herself. After divorcing Thomas Fox in 1929, she adopted a stage name, Frances Fox became Dale Evans, a name suggested by a radio station manager who believed it had the kind of sparkle that could stick. Short, sweet, and easy on the tongue. He was right. It would soon become legendary. Her talent caught the attention of 20th Century Fox. After a successful screen test, she signed a contract and entered the world of Hollywood. Bright lights, big promises, and even bigger illusions. She was promoted as a rising star, a jazz and swing singer with that all-American look. On the Edgar Bergen Charlie McCarthy show, her voice reached millions. But there was one secret she carried quietly through the fame. The boy the studio said was her teenage brother was actually her son, Tommy. Hollywood had told her to lie. It was a deception she hated but endured. Because in those days, being a single mother didn't fit the studio's idea of stardom. Her career blossomed, even as her personal life remained complicated. By the mid-1930s, she had performed on Dallas radio station WFAA, building a loyal fan base. She was talented, ambitious, and determined to keep climbing. But destiny had another role waiting for her, one that would make her name echo through generations. In 1947, Dale Evans married Roy Rogers, the cowboy who would become her partner in love, faith, and fame. Their wedding took place on New Year's Eve at the Flying L Ranch in Davis, Oklahoma, the same spot where they had filmed Home in Oklahoma. It was his third marriage and her fourth. But this time, it was different. This one would last a lifetime. Yet, before the fame, before the white lace and cowboy boots, before the world crowned her Queen of the West, Dale Evans was just a girl, young, restless, and searching for love in all the wrong places. The Girl Who Loved Too Soon, 3. Before Dale Evans became America's beloved Queen of the West, she was just a 14-year-old girl at a courthouse dance, standing on the edge of womanhood and dreaming of a life bigger than the one she knew. That's where she met Thomas F. Fox, handsome, charming, and 17. He was the kind of boy who made a young girl believe in forever. Their connection was instant, fierce, and full of promise. And within months, they made a decision that would change everything. In 1927, Dale and Thomas eloped, lying about their ages to convince the world they were ready for marriage. She was barely 14, and he was 17. By the next year, they were parents to a baby boy, Thomas Jr. For a brief, shining moment, it looked like happiness had found them. A young couple, a new baby, and the illusion of a fairy tale beginning. But fairy tales can be cruel. By 1929, the dream had shattered. Thomas walked away, not once, but twice, before finally leaving for good. He told her he was too young for the burden of marriage and fatherhood. Dale, just 16, was suddenly alone. A teenage mother, abandoned with a baby and no safety net. But she wasn't the kind to crumble. She packed her pain and her piano skills and moved to Memphis, Tennessee, determined to survive. Life there wasn't glamorous. It was gritty. She worked day jobs at a bus company and later at an insurance firm to keep herself and her child afloat. But music pulsed through her veins, and every night she chased it like it was the only thing keeping her alive. When a supervisor overheard her singing, he introduced her to local radio stations. Soon, Dale was performing live on WMC and WREC, her soft, southern voice pouring through speakers across Memphis. Her talent was undeniable, but passion didn't pay the bills. Still, Dale kept pushing, juggling motherhood, work, and music. And just when it seemed she was finding her rhythm again, another man entered her life. His name was August Wayne Johns, solid, kind, and everything Thomas hadn't been. Dale married him in 1929, hoping to rewrite her story. On the outside, they looked content, a young couple trying to make life work. But in truth, Dale's heart was still searching for something more. Their marriage ended quietly in 1936. They had no children together, and perhaps that made it easier to walk away. That same year, life threw her another curve. Her young son Tommy fell ill. With no family in Chicago to lean on, Dale packed up again, this time heading home to Texas. Her parents were living in Italy, Texas, and she knew they would help care for Tommy while she tried to rebuild her career. In Dallas, Dale got a job singing for local radio station WFAA, and fate decided to give her another shot at love. She reconnected with pianist and orchestra leader Robert Dale Butts, a familiar face she had worked with before. This time, friendship turned into something warmer, something hopeful. They married in 1937, and for a while, things finally seemed to click into place. The couple moved back to Chicago, chasing opportunities. Robert found work at NBC, and Dale's career blossomed. She sang with jazz, swing, and big bands, performing with the Anson Weeks Orchestra on a nationwide tour that stretched an entire year. Crowds loved her smooth tone, her charm, and her quiet confidence. For 8 golden weeks, she even found herself in Los Angeles, chasing that elusive Hollywood dream. But dreams are fickle things. She didn't find the big break she hoped for, not yet. Still, her name was making rounds in the right places. When she returned from tour, a Hollywood agent named Joe Rivkin spotted her talent and called her in to audition for Holiday Inn, a film starring Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire. It could have been her ticket to stardom, but she didn't land the part. What she did land, however, was something even bigger. Her performance caught the attention of 20th Century Fox. They signed her, believing they had found their next sweetheart. But there was a catch. The studio decided Dale Evans needed a little Hollywood polishing. They shaved 7 years off her age, repackaged her as a single woman, and turned her son Tommy into her teenage brother. It was a lie she had to live for years, a secret she carried with quiet shame. Then came 1943, the year that changed everything. Dale was cast in The Cowboy and The Senorita and Hollywood Canteen, 2 films that would set her on a collision course with destiny. On set, she met Roy Rogers, America's singing cowboy, golden-hearted and larger than life. Their chemistry was undeniable, but at that time, both were married, Dale to Robert and Roy to his wife, Arlene. Their connection was real, but their timing was all wrong. A year later, Dale and Robert divorced. She poured herself into work, trying to quiet her heart. But fate wasn't done with her yet. In 1946, tragedy struck Roy's world when his wife Arlene passed away shortly after giving birth to their child. It was an unbearable loss. And in the middle of that grief, Dale was there. Not as a co-star, not as a fan, but as a friend who understood pain. Their bond deepened, slowly and naturally. Friendship turned to love, the kind that didn't just happen. It felt meant to be. By the fall of 1947, Roy was ready to take that leap again. One evening, just before a big rodeo performance in Chicago, he looked at Dale from atop his horse, Trigger, and asked her to marry him. No fanfare, no audience, just 2 souls who had already been through enough to know this was real. She said yes. On December 31st, 1947, Dale Evans and Roy Rogers married at the Flying L Ranch in Oklahoma, the same spot where they had filmed Home in Oklahoma. It was her 4th marriage and his 3rd, but this time, it was forever. They believed that God himself had stitched their paths together. And as soon as they said, "I do," everything changed. Their careers exploded. Their chemistry on screen mirrored the love they shared off it. They became America's favorite couple, a symbol of hope, faith, and enduring love in a world that often forgot what those things meant. By 1951, they were co-starring in The Roy Rogers Show, playing husband and wife solving small-town crimes and singing about life, love, and the open range. To audiences, it was entertainment. But to Roy and Dale, it was a reflection of something deeper. 2 people who had been broken before, now standing strong together under the bright lights of Hollywood. Angel unaware, the love that outlived them both. For Dale and Roy, love was never just a word. It was the foundation of everything they built. Together, They weren't just America's favorite cowboy couple. They were a family bound by faith, tragedy, and an unwavering belief that love could rise again from heartbreak. After their wedding, the Rogers household was full. Dale's son, Roy's 3 children, and the promise of more to come. It was a second chance for both of them, and they wanted nothing more than to build the family they had always dreamed of. 3 years into their marriage, that dream came true. Dale gave birth to their only biological child together, a baby girl they named Robin Elizabeth. She was tiny, beautiful, and fragile, the light of their lives. But that light flickered far too soon. Robin was born with Down syndrome at a time when society knew little about the condition and cared even less. Resources were scarce, doctors offered little hope, and whispers of pity followed them everywhere. Some people even advised them to place Robin in an institution, but Dale and Roy refused. To them, she wasn't a burden. She was a blessing. For a while, they poured all their love into caring for her, praying for a miracle. But before she could celebrate her second birthday, Robin passed away. Some blamed complications from her disorder, others the mumps. The truth didn't matter. Their hearts were shattered all the same. In her grief, Dale turned to the one thing that had always saved her: writing. She poured her pain into words, penning her first book, Angel Unaware. But instead of writing as a grieving mother, she wrote through the eyes of her daughter from heaven. It was a mother's love story told from beyond the veil, tender and transcendent. The book touched millions, bringing hope to families who had been taught to hide their sorrow. And Dale didn't stop there. She became a voice for children like Robin, those born with developmental disabilities who were too often ignored or shamed. She spoke out, wrote passionately, and used her platform to fight prejudice. Her advocacy helped shift public perception, and her compassion inspired a movement. In time, a center for people with developmental disabilities, the Dale Rogers Training Center, was renamed in her honor. Her little girl had changed the world, and Dale made sure her light never dimmed. But even with her faith and resilience, life kept testing her. Dale and Roy's love didn't falter. Their family grew again, this time through adoption. They welcomed 3 more children: Debbie, formerly in Lee, Dodie, and John David, and fostered a 4th, Marion. Their home was filled with laughter, music, and the chaos only a big family can bring. For a while, it seemed the storm had finally passed, but tragedy has a cruel way of circling back. In 1964, their 12-year-old daughter Debbie was killed in a bus accident, a loss that tore through the family like lightning. Just when they thought they had survived the worst, another heartbreak followed. Their 18-year-old son, John David, died while serving in the army in Germany. 2 children gone, 2 more holes in hearts already cracked by grief. For most people, that kind of pain would have shattered faith. But for Dale, writing was once again her lifeline. She poured her sorrow into 2 more inspirational books, each one a letter to the heavens and a testament to her belief that God's plan, however mysterious, still held purpose. After Debbie's death, Dale and Roy made a life-altering choice. They packed up and left the noise of Hollywood behind, settling in Apple Valley, California. Their new home, the Double R Bar Ranch, spanned 67 acres of quiet peace. It became their sanctuary, their refuge from the cameras and the chaos, a place where they could simply be. But even in their peace, Dale refused to stay silent. That same year, she stood before 2,500 people at a rally for Project Prayer, a passionate movement fighting to keep prayer in American schools after the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. Her words were bold and fearless. She told the crowd that it was high time America stood up to be counted, urging parents to teach their children about faith and freedom. Dale's conviction echoed far beyond that auditorium. Her faith wasn't performative, it was personal, fierce, and immovable. The years rolled on, and Dale's devotion only deepened. In the 1970s, she released several albums of gospel music, her voice still strong. still filled with the same emotion that once won her radio gigs as a teenager. And in her 80s, when most people were slowing down, Dale was just getting started again, hosting her own Christian television show, A Date with Dale. Even as age crept in, her eyes still sparkled when she spoke about her husband, her partner through every storm. But in 1998, her world fell silent. Roy Rogers, her king of the Cowboys, passed away from congestive heart failure on July 6, 1998. He was 86. He died at their ranch in Apple Valley, the home they had built together. His death left a void no prayer could fill. Dale was devastated. She had lost not just a husband, but her soulmate, her anchor, her reason for every sunrise. The house they shared felt quieter, the air heavier. Though grief weighed on her, Dale wasn't alone. Her surviving children surrounded her, carrying the legacy of their parents with pride. Cheryl Rogers Barnett, their adopted daughter, became a driving force in charity work, helping children through organizations like Child Help USA, a torchbearer for her mother's compassion. But Dale's heart never truly healed. For 2.5 years, she lived with the ache of missing Roy, finding solace only in prayer. And then, in February 2001, the story came full circle. At 88, Dale Evans took her final bow. The cause was heartbreakingly familiar: congestive heart failure, the same condition that had taken Roy. They were buried side by side at the Double R Bar Ranch, the place where their love had taken root, bloomed, and endured every storm. Even in death, they were together. Today, their story stands as one of Hollywood's rarest treasures. A love that was real, raw, and resilient. Roy and Dale weren't perfect, but their faith and devotion carried them through everything life threw their way. Yet what most people didn't know was that Dale carried one last truth in her heart, something she never spoke of until Roy was gone. What Dale Evans finally confessed after Roy's death. 5. When Roy Rogers took his final breath on July 6, 1998, the world lost its king of the Cowboys. But Dale Evans, his partner, his queen, and his truest love, lost far more. She didn't just lose a husband, she lost the man who had carried her through every storm, every heartbreak, every chapter of her life. For 51 years, their love had been a living legend, the kind of story Hollywood loved to tell but could never quite replicate. For a while, Dale stayed quiet after his passing. She retreated to their beloved Double R Bar Ranch in Apple Valley, the place where they had built their life and raised their children. The halls that once echoed with laughter now carried the heavy stillness of memory. Every photograph, every saddle, every song reminded her of him. But when she finally spoke, her words revealed a truth that only she could tell. A truth that peeled back the Hollywood myth and showed the heart of the woman behind it all. She called him Rogers, never Roy. To the world, he was the king of the Cowboys, heroic and charming. But to her, he was the man who prayed beside her, cried with her, and held her hand through the worst nights of their lives. In one of her final interviews, Dale remembered him with raw tenderness. She said Roy was a wonderful human being, and that sharing her life with him for nearly 51 years was the greatest blessing of all. Her voice broke when she admitted, "To say I will miss him is a gross understatement." Then, after a long pause, she added softly, "He was truly the king of the Cowboys in my life." For half a century, the public saw their smiles, the perfect cowboy couple riding into the sunset, singing "Happy Trails." But the real story, the one Dale finally shared, was about faith, forgiveness, and endurance. Their love hadn't been free of struggle. They had lived through pain that would have broken most couples, the deaths of their children, the pressures of fame, and the glare of public life. Yet somehow, they stayed devoted. Dale once explained that their marriage wasn't just built on love, it was built on God. Every trial, every tragedy, only pushed them closer to their faith and to each other. "I married Roy Rogers, the king of the Cowboys, she reflected, and together we were known as the king and queen of the West. But to me, he was always just Rogers, the man I loved and trusted, and who always stood by me. She meant every word. Roy had said much of the same before his passing. In his autobiography, Happy Trails, Our Life Story, published in 1981, he revealed the depth of his devotion to Dale. "Evans has been the sunshine of my life," he wrote. "She has been my guiding star through the good times and the bad. I couldn't have made it without her." Those words were more than just sentiment, they were truth. Dale had been his anchor through career highs and devastating lows. She was the reason Roy managed to stay grounded when fame threatened to consume him. In February 2001, just 2.5 years after losing her beloved Rogers, Dale Evans passed away from congestive heart failure, the same condition that had taken him. She was 88. It was as if her heart, so full of love for him, finally gave out when it could no longer beat without his. After Roy's death, Dale didn't reveal scandal or secrets. What she revealed was far deeper. The truth that the greatest love stories aren't the ones without pain. They're the ones that survive it. Roy and Dale weren't just legends of the silver screen. They were proof that real love doesn't fade under fame or time or tragedy. It lingers in the songs they sang, in the faith they lived, and in the happy trails they left behind for the rest of us to follow. Because at the end of it all, Dale Evans' truth was simple. Roy Rogers may have been America's cowboy hero, but to her, he was home. What do you think about Roy Rogers and Dale Evans' love story? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.